Hi everybody, welcome to this Java tutorial. Today we're going to look at the concept of iteration. Iteration just means to repeat a process a certain number of times. And to iterate in Java, one common option is to employ a for loop. So to look at an example of how for loops work, let's start a new Java project. I'm going to call this the Max project. And inside my Max project area, I'm going to create a new class file, which is where my main function will be located. And I'm going to call this class file main. Call it what you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, so in my main function, I'm going to design, in my main class file, under the main function, I'm going to design another function. Public static void display max. And what this function is going to do is create a variable called max and initialize it. Ask the user for a number, get the number, compare the number with max, and if the number is greater than max, update max, and finally output max. So let's have a go at seeing if we can code this in Java. The first thing we're going to do is create a variable called max and initialize it. Means give it a starter value. I'm not sure. Let's give it a starter value of 0. We might change that later. Ask the user for a number. System.out.println. Enter a number. Get the number. We're going to get the number from the keyboard. So actually I need a scanner variable. I'm going to call it kbin. And this is a new scanner, which gets data from the keyboard. That's what system.in means. And I need to import the scanner file from the Java util package. Now that we've done that, we should be able to get the number. We get it from the keyboard. We need to assign it to a variable. So I'm just going to create another variable up here called usernum. Okay. So we're going to assign to usernum a value from the keyboard using our scanner variable kbin, and we're going to look for an integer. Then we're going to compare the number with max. So if usernum is greater than max, we're going to update max. We're just going to say, okay, max is now whatever the user entered. That's the new maximum number. And the final thing we're going to do is output max. System.out.print. I usually use ln. Max is max. Okay, so just to clean up the code and make it a bit more readable, I am going to delete my comments. But normally I would keep the comments because they're useful for other people to understand the code that I've written. That's really why we put comments into code, so that other programmers can kind of quickly understand what we're doing. Okay? Anyway, this is my algorithm. Let's just have a quick test and see if it works. Oh, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. I've designed the function, but I haven't called it from my main function, okay, which ends there. Let's just put a comment at the end of main. So inside my main function, I need to call the display max function to activate it. So let's do that, and we'll run the code. Enter a number. So the new value of max is 6, because 6 is greater than 0. Let's run it again. Enter a number. Oh, yep, that's correct. Max is still 0, because -3 is not greater than 0. Brilliant, it works. Now, what if we want to repeat this process, getting a number, comparing it with max and updating if necessary? What if we want to repeat this 10 times, or 100 times, or 1,000 times? Copying and pasting this block of code isn't the most efficient way to do that. Much more efficiently is to use iteration in a computer programming language. And Java has something called a for loop. This is the syntax of a for loop. It starts here and it finishes here, and everything between those braces is repeated. We just need to instruct the code how many repetitions we need. So I'm going to show you an example, and we'll talk about it after we've tested it. So I'm going to put this is the code that I want to repeat. So I'm going to put that into the for loop. Brilliant. So all of this will be repeated 5 times. I'm also just going to do this. And we'll look at what I'm doing here in a moment. I just want to track this thing called I as we run the program. Okay? So we'll talk about this in a moment. Let's just run the program and see if it works. So enter a number, 0. So I starts with a value of 0, and we run the code. Then I becomes 1, and we run the code again. Then I becomes 2, and we run the code again. I becomes 3, and we run the code again. I becomes 4, and we run the code again. And that's the end of the loop. And the biggest number that I entered was 13. So I got the correct answer. Now what is this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Let's have a look. The for loop has a control variable called I, and I'm giving it a starter value of 0. So when I is 0, we run the code. When we've finished, we add 1 to I. I becomes 1. And we ask, is 1 less than 5? If that's true, we run the code again. I becomes 2. 2 is less than 5. True. We do this again. I becomes 3. 3 is less than 5. True. We do this again. I becomes 4. 4 is less than 5. True. We do this again. I becomes 5. 5 is less than 5. No, that's not true. The for loop is finished, and we continue on to the next line in the program. So that's how a for loop works in Java. And also, I've just introduced the classic algorithm for determining the biggest number in a collection of numbers. Notice that I initialized max to be 0. What if I initialized max to be 1,000? If I run the program, I want to find the biggest number that the user is inputting. Now the answer should be 34. But actually max was never changed. So when you're trying to determine the biggest number in a collection of numbers, initialize max to be a very small number. For example, 0. But be careful. Let me show you why. What if all of the numbers that I enter are negative numbers? I want to find the biggest negative number. So in these 5 numbers, the answer is -1. But I didn't get the correct answer. So on top of our study of for loops, have a think about that algorithm as well, how to determine the biggest number in a collection, and what would you do to determine the smallest number in a collection.